The Carolina Panthers are in first place in the NFC South, and the path to the playoffs seems pretty clear. We'll look back at the good, the bad, and the not so ugly from the Panthers' win against Tampa on Sunday.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, the part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, Friday, even on this Christmas week. Every single day, you're going to have an episode of your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show right here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the Carolina Panther fans all across the world. On Christmas morning, you will wake up with a team that is in first place in the NFC South. So, of course, soak it in and be thankful for what is, at least in my opinion, the best gift you could have asked for at this point in time in the year. 'Tis the season. The Carolina Panthers are sitting at 8-7. They are right there on the doorstep of the NFC South division title, their first division title in 10 years, and their first playoff appearance in 8 seasons as well. Looking back at Sunday, we'll go over the keys victory that I gave you on Friday and review how the Panthers did. Also, let's look ahead to the game on Sunday against Seattle. When you look at some of the scenarios for the Panthers to clinch, the game against Seattle actually may not mean that much. It looks like it's going to all come down to Week 18 down in Tampa. But let's start up the show as we start up every Tuesday show throughout the regular season. And that's by looking back at the good, the bad, and, well, when you win and you're in first place of the NFC South with 2 weeks left to play, ain't nothing ugly about that, but we'll go over the good, the bad, and the ugly right now here on Locked On Panthers. The good, the Panthers rookie class. And it's not just the guys that were selected by Carolina back in April. It's also the dudes that were signed thereafter who have made an impact on this 2025 season. You look at the active roster right now heading into Week 17. The Panthers have 11 rookies on the active roster. And if you want to count Corey Thornton, who's on injured reserve out for the rest of the season with a broken leg, he would be the 12th rookie to make an impact on this season for the Panthers. And of those 12, 8 of them were drafted, 4 of them went undrafted. And we have seen in years past that the first round picks, they've had plenty of impacts helping Carolina win. We've seen second round picks do that, not so much from fourth round picks or fifth round picks or sixth round picks, or of course, seventh round picks, and then undrafted free agents. But this regime, we've seen over the last 2 seasons, they've been able to find some diamonds in the rough who've come in and made an impact as rookies. And that is happening once again. You look at the game on Sunday, Dan Morgan's hands are all over that, but also just the rookie class. Their fingerprints are all over that game. Tetairoa McMillan, 6 receptions, 73 yards, a touchdown. He continues to be in the MVP race, or the Rookie of the Year race offensively. And Dave Canales was asked about that on Monday, and Dave said that, quote, I certainly think that he's made enough of an impact to be in that conversation. He has been, if you want to talk about just MVPs of the Panthers offense, he's been one of them, because if he were not healthy and were not productive like he's been this season, not having Jalen Coger for the first 6 weeks, not having Xavier Legette take the next step this season, we'll talk about that momentarily, the Panthers passing game would be in a really rough place without T-Mac. So he was a big part of that game on Sunday. Nic Scourton, the second round pick, 4 tackles, tackle for loss. He was able to set the edge. You saw the emotion that he played with in that game on Sunday. I thought that he was excellent. Lathan Ransom, who went from being, I guess, the scapegoat last week for the loss, even though that's a tough penalty to take at that point in time. I don't know what he's supposed to do when Tyler Shuck is sliding late, but we know each and every time, for the most part, that's a penalty that's called on the defender, which makes it so unfair. But he comes back the next week. Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, not on the same page. Baker tried to find Mike. Mike thought Baker was going to scramble. He turns the other way. Lathan Ransom playing his man, and the ball, intercepts it. And there is a great story from 1 week where he's feeling like he let the team down to the next week where he is lifting this team up into first place in the NFC South, that game-sealing interception. Ryan Fitzgerald, we've seen it happen multiple times this season. Game-winning kicks. Some have been as time expired. Others have been on the Panthers' final offensive drive. He was able to do that again on Sunday, knocking home a 48-yard field goal at Bank of America Stadium on Sunday afternoon. Jimmy Horn Jr. didn't really get a lot of touches, but he had that 25-yard run on the opening drive to set up the Panthers' opening score. And then Mitchell Evans, 3 receptions, 23 yards as well, as he played an impact on that game. And Princely Umamielon got some snaps as well. But the Panthers' rookie class has really been good so far this year. And that's the foundation of what this team has to be. We have seen again in the past where there's been a select few, not even a handful, like 1 or 2 guys in each class that actually became cornerstone players. The Panthers really lacked the depth that they needed, and they always had to go out and spend a ton of money on free agency trying to bring guys to fill in these holes that had they drafted better, they would not need to do. And it's a lot cheaper to have guys on rookie deals and then to sign them back than having to go sign guys in free agency when you're getting in bidding wars. So that is something you look at moving forward. Really good job by Dan Morgan, by Dave Canales, by Brant Tillis, and all the scouts here in Carolina to put together this rookie class that helped them win that game on Sunday against Tampa Bay. Bryce Young, once again, the numbers are rarely ever sexy when looking at Bryce, but he just keeps making plays. 21 of 32 on Sunday, 191 yards, 2 touchdowns. The plays I'm talking about right before the half, the blitz is being sent. Bryce finds Tetairoa McMillan, 22-yard touchdown. Now, Todd Bowles, the head coach there in Tampa, said that Jamel Dean did a terrible job on that play, need to be back there. So you can question whether Tampa should have been blitzing that situation or not. It doesn't matter. The guy didn't do his job. Bryce Young did his job. Tetairoa McMillan did his job. 22-yard touchdown with 7 seconds left there before halftime. Bryce also on that play where he escaped the blitz, Austin Corbett, he admitted on Sunday that, hey, that's my fault. I kind of olayed there. Bryce able to evade the rush, scramble around, find JT Sanders wide open in the end zone for a 6-yard touchdown pass, and then on the go-ahead drive there in the fourth quarter, 3rd straight week. He had the dime, Jalen Coker for the touchdown against the Rams. Dime last week against Saints in that early touchdown 3rd quarter. Then 3rd and 4. 34-yard reception, toss and throw to pass and catch, rather, to Bryce Young to Jalen Coker on Sunday afternoon. I brought this up last week that Bryce against the Rams and the Saints had his best 2 games as far as looking at EPA per drop back this season. Now you look at the last 3 weeks, he has posted a positive EPA per drop back. The only other time that's happened was weeks 12 through 14 last season against the Chiefs, the Bucks, and the Eagles. Now, when you compare his EPA per drop back now to those 3 weeks, he has a 0.33 EPA per drop back the last 3 weeks compared to a 0.13 EPA per drop back during that stretch in 2024. This is by far the best stretch of Bryce Young's career when looking at these last 3 games. His PFF grade of 91.6 is actually the 2nd best grade he's ever had, behind Arizona last year, not the Falcons game this season, not the Falcons game in week 18 last year, but Arizona apparently last year had a 91.7 PFF grade, 91.6 on Sunday. He's answering the bell down the stretch. We were going to ask, y'all have really asked a lot of questions about Bryce Young and what his future is going to be in Carolina, whether he gets 5th-year option, a decision that does not need to be made until the beginning of May. I told you, let's just let the season play out. Let's see how Bryce performs, and we'll know if they're a playoff team, it's in all likelihood because he played well. If they're not a playoff team, it's probably because he did not play well. And so far, he's played well. Maybe he lays an egg in week 18 or on Sunday, and that costs Carolina. But you look at the last couple of games, he was great against the Rams. It was not on him that they lost that game against Saints, and he was excellent again on Sunday in that win against Tampa Bay. So Bryce, to me, is answering the bell. And another good 1 win away. The Panthers win and the Bucs lose this week. The Panthers win the NFC South. If they both win, both lose, or if the Panthers lose and the Bucs win, the division title will come down to week 18, a winner-take-all situation there in Tampa. So still, either you get the win this week and Tampa loses, or you have to wait till week 18 and get that win, and you'll be in the playoffs and be division champs. The only bad I want to point out is obviously Xavier Legette. Oh boy. You know how I felt about the decision to take him. Was never a fan. I understand all that he went through. at South Carolina. But my point on draft night, my point still today, and I'll make this point again tomorrow as I answer further and dive deeper into this when doing the weekly Wednesday mailbag, is that he's not going to get 5 years to show out as a pro in the NFL. A little bit different in college. He's not going to get 5 years. And if you look at next year being a first-round pick, that's the year to where the Panthers need to figure out whether they want to exercise a fifth-year option. And you look at what Bryce Young has done so far, and even what Bryce Young was doing at this point last season and what Xavier Legette's not doing, hard to imagine that would be a decision the Panthers would make in the favor of exercising that option. He had another awful drop over the middle on Sunday. That would have been an explosive and likely led to points. Whether it's a touchdown or a field goal, they were going to score on that drive. Instead, they had to punt the ball. You look at later on, same mistake he made in week 1, not aware of where he was when at the sideline, doesn't get a foot down, but he does at least make up for it the next play with a 17-yard reception. But you cannot be making just these mental mistakes, these things that are unacceptable at the NFL level. Has a 47.8 PFF grade yesterday. That's what he had in that game. And Dave Canales was asked about this on Monday, just got out of that press conference, and he asked, someone asked him, is Legette in any danger of losing his starting job? And Dave said, no, he's not going to lose his starting job, that he's someone that they're going to continue to trust, and he's not in jeopardy of losing any of his reps. So for all y'all asking about Legette and where he stands, they're going to keep him out there, and he's going to probably continue to not make an impact at all positively for this offense, which has been the case last year and so far this season, his second year in the NFL. The ugly, of course, there's nothing ugly about Carolina being 8-7, being 1 win away from the playoffs here in 2025. But Baker Mayfield was talking a lot of trash out there on the field. Was having some words the last couple of weeks about how Carolina did him wrong, which Steve Wilks, who's since been fired by the Jets as their defensive coordinator, pushed back and said, look, if I was really in charge, we would not have traded away our best player in Christian McCaffrey. And look, by everything I know, Baker probably was not going to be the guy for Steve. But still, let's not act like the best thing that not happened to him was him being released, being able to go to the Rams 3 days later and win a game, because that does not happen. Is he even a starter right now in Tampa Bay? I'm going to guess no, but this was the third straight game for Baker Mayfield where he threw an interception after he recorded 5 in his first 12 games this season. The Bucs are now 0-7 this year when Baker throws a pick, 7-1 when he doesn't throw. The only time that happened when they lost where he threw an interception was New England. Tampa also, their losing streak with their season on the line, having control of the NFC South, they have gone out and lost 3 straight games to divisional opponents, to New Orleans at home, Atlanta at home, and then, of course, against Carolina, where they had the mini bye. They played Thursday. They had extra rest, and they still could not win this game on Sunday. They've lost 6 out of 7 and 7 out of their last 9 games. This team is in free fall mode, and it really would be a shame if Carolina, when you can see the Panthers have had the yo-yo nature, but this is a team learning how to win, if they cannot take control of the NFC South by actually winning it. And then if you allow Tampa to come back and still get it, like that would be obviously disappointing considering where the Bucs are headed and where the Carolina Panthers seem to be headed this year and in the future under this regime. Now, looking at the game coming up here on Sunday against Seattle, how important is it when you look at some of the playoff scenarios? We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. It's fair to ask, looking ahead to this game on Sunday, just how important it is for the Panthers to beat the Seattle Seahawks, who currently sit in first place in not just the NFC West, but first place in the NFC. How about our old friend Sam Darnold getting a big win there on Thursday night in what was I mean, absurd. The 2-point conversion that they got. It was a correct call, but absurd that it worked out for them. And that's why defenses are coached to always just get the ball if it goes on the other side of the line of scrimmage. But they did not do that. Seattle gets the win in overtime. They get the 2-point conversion also at the end of that game. Congrats, Sam Darnold, and for the Seattle Seahawks for getting that win, and obviously an important game for Dave Canales and a lot of people on this staff because of their time that they spent there under former head coach Pete Carroll, who's now down in Las Vegas with the Raiders, and it's not really going well. Again, if the Panthers win and the Bucs lose this week, the Panthers are champs of the NFC South, and they do not need to play anyone at all in Week 18. And I would hope that that would be the case. If they both win, that being the Panthers and the Bucs, both lose, or if the Panthers lose and the Bucs win, the division title will come down to Week 18, a winner-take-all scenario between Carolina and Tampa, down there in Tampa, and potentially, hopefully, if that's what's going to be, in primetime on Sunday Night Football. But there are some other games that I think actually would take precedent over that if they also have some extreme stakes there heading into the final week of the year when it pertains to the playoffs. Now, Scott Fowler asked 2 questions on Monday to Dave Canales just about how they'll approach the game against Seattle, because we're going to go over some scenarios here and kind of figure out whether it is important or not. So asked on Monday if he'll keep an eye on the Tampa score, which is that game's going to be going on against Miami at the same time as the Carolina Panthers game against Seattle. Dave said that he would not pay attention to that. They're going to be focused on their game at hand, which would make a lot of sense. But then he was asked later by Scott, would they potentially, if down 3 scores late in the game, it's out of hand, would they then rest starters and not put anybody at risk? Dave said that he does not envision them doing that, but he needs to talk to Dan Morgan about what their plan will be. And I believe him. Let's go back to the game against Buffalo. They're getting destroyed. And yet, Andy Dalton, with a broken thumb, is still getting to play, and they're not putting in Hendon Hooker, who is not here anymore and was not here very much longer after that game. They would not even give him a single rep in a game where they're getting destroyed. You don't know if your quarterback, Bryce Young, is going to play the next week. Your backup, who your starter is that day, Andy Dalton, is playing hurt. Why not take him out of the game? Because the reps are what's important to Dave. So I'm guessing that the reps are important for him in this game on Sunday. He said as much on Monday, and maybe even next week, if they have it wrapped up, the reps will be important for them in Week 18 in what potentially could be a meaningless game against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But looking at just some of these scenarios as far as whether this game on Sunday really is important. If the Panthers lose to Seattle and Tampa wins versus Miami, then you're going to have both of these teams sitting at 8-8. And if Carolina loses to Tampa Bay, well, they'll be 8-9. Tampa will be 9-8. And it's very simple. Just based off of record, they don't make the playoffs. So you lose and Tampa wins. Okay, well, nothing, you're not hurt by it at all. You just got to find a way to win and be 9-8 and have Tampa be 8-9. You look at another scenario. If the Panthers win and Tampa wins, you have Carolina now sitting at 9-7. You have Tampa sitting at 8-8. But if they then lose to Tampa and they're 9-8 and Tampa's 9-8, it comes back to the record in common games, which we've talked about. Right now, Carolina is sitting at 5-6, while Tampa is sitting at 6-5. Carolina beating Seattle will get them to 6-6, where Tampa beating Miami will get them to 7-5, and they would have the tiebreaker as head-to-head would be split, division record. They'd both be 3-3. Then it comes down to record in common games, where again, Tampa would be 7-5, Carolina would be 6-6. And the one game I'd be looking at that really cost the Panthers this season was that game back in week 2 against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, if the Panthers lose to Seattle and Tampa loses versus Miami, and then, of course, Carolina loses again to Tampa, and we're going to just say as well that the Rams next Monday beat the Falcons, because there's that wacky scenario where if Atlanta wins out, Carolina wins out, Tampa wins out, that Carolina would then win the tiebreaker there. And we can go over that maybe later on this week on Friday. I've not really given a lot of credence to that because I just have a hard time believing the Rams are going to lose to the Falcons, but it can happen. It can happen. Certainly understand that. But in this scenario where Carolina loses Seattle, and they're down to 8-8, and Tampa loses Miami, and they're down to 7-9, and then Carolina loses to Tampa, and they're the only teams in the NFC South at 8-9. It once again comes down to record in games against common opponents, where again Carolina right now is 5-6. A loss to Seattle would have them at 5-7. Tampa right now 6-5. A loss to Miami would have them at 6-6. So they would get that tiebreaker, as again head to head would be split. You look at the division record, both will be 3-3. And then looking at record in common games, Carolina 5-7, Tampa 6-6. So when looking at all of that, unless Tampa loses to Miami and you, as in the Panthers, beat Seattle, this game doesn't really mean anything at all. I think the Bucs are going to win on Sunday. Now, they have lost 7 out of 9 and 6 out of 7, including their last 3 games against divisional opponents. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that they could lose to Quinn Ewers and Mike McDaniel is on the hot seat. I just would have a really hard time thinking that's going to happen, but I shouldn't have a hard time believing that because they're in free fall mode. So it probably will happen. But even if it does, Carolina's got to rise up and beat a Seahawks team. And we know the pattern. Since week 7, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. They have not been able to handle success. Now, them not handling success would really be losing these next 2 games. Losing to Seattle in a game that you look at just the scenarios went over, not that big of a deal. You got to just beat Tampa twice. And we even knew going into last week, before they had lost to New Orleans, before Tampa had lost to Atlanta, we thought that the best case for them to get in was just sweeping the Bucs. And even right now, I'm looking at it and whether this game means that much. And it certainly does, because you want to have momentum going in. If you have wins against the Packers, against the Seahawks, against the Rams, who can say that the Carolina Panthers at 10-7 cannot go on a run? Who can sit here and deny that fact? Or possibility, rather. It's not a fact. It's a possibility. If you've beaten 3 of the top teams in the NFC and you won your division, you get a home playoff game, probably against either Seattle or against LA again, maybe even San Francisco. Who's going to say that they can't find a way to win that game? And then after that, why not go win the whole damn thing? I don't think that's going to be the case, but you just look at it simply heading into this week. If the Panthers lose to Seattle and Tampa beats Miami, they got to beat Tampa. If the Panthers beat Seattle and Tampa beats Miami, they got to beat Tampa. If the Panthers lose to Seattle and Tampa loses Miami, they got to beat Tampa. It all really hinges on beating Tampa, but that's not to say that beating Seattle, getting 9-7, having a chance to be 10-7, a double-digit win season. And remember, this organization has 0 back-to-back winning seasons, which they're going to have as long as they, of course, win one of these last games. Would love for that to end next season if that is possible for this organization. So is it the end-all be-all to beat Seattle on Sunday? No, there's a scenario where, of course, they win and Tampa continues to free fall. They win the NFC South and Week 18 is meaningless. But looking at most of the likely scenarios, and most scenarios are out there, whatever the result is against Seattle, in all likelihood, Carolina's going to have to beat Tampa next week down there in Tampa Bay. And that's also fine. So does the game matter on Sunday? It does. But in all likelihood, it's probably not going to mean that much as far as who actually ends up winning the NFC South here in 2025. On Fridays, I give you my 3 keys of victory. Then on Tuesdays, we review how the Panthers did with those keys. We'll do that here in just a moment on Locked on Panthers. Car shopping should feel exciting, not confusing, and with Car Gurus, you get the confidence you deserve. They cut through all the noise so you can actually see the best deals on the cars you want, because when it comes to a big purchase, you deserve the best deal, and Car Gurus makes that whole process simple by giving you real information, real deal ratings, and more listings than anyone else so you can shop the way you want. Use Car Gurus deal ratings to compare cars quickly without having to guess whether the price is fair. You'll love being able to filter by everything, mileage, trim, features, so you're only seeing cars that actually fit what you need. Car Gurus connects you with trusted dealerships for a transparent and hassle-free buying process. With over 4 million listings, the most of any online automotive marketplace, you'll always find the best deal. Shop the way you want with the tools, data, and unbiased deal ratings that make it easy. Buy or sell your next car today at cargurus.com. That's CARGURUS.com, cargurus.com. On Fridays, I give you my 3 keys to victory for the Panthers that Sunday. Then here on Tuesdays, review how the Panthers did with those 3 keys. Key number 1 was to get Rico Dowdle's groove back. And got a question about Rico and about Chuba and how the splits should be in the final couple of weeks based off of how Rico's really tapered off since that week 5 through 9 stretch when he ended up being the number 1 back for the Panthers over the last half of the season. He rushed for 652 yards, had 6.3 203 yards per carry, which both led the NFL at the time. Since then, Rico has rushed for 243 yards, 3.2 yards per carry, heading into Sunday at least. On Sunday, he had 9 carries, 29 yards, 3.2 yards per carry, had 4 receptions, 14 yards. This 6th straight game where he has failed to rush for at least 60 yards. He's had under 60 yards rushing in the last 6 games. And this kind of goes back to what I was telling y'all, you're overreacting to a 2-game sample size. Now, I guess 3-game as he was really good also against Green Bay. You got to just let the season play out. With Bryce and his future and the 5th-year option, just let the season play out. And right now, it's certainly trending towards not Bryce. I mean, Bryce, I think, is going to be a starting quarterback next year anyways, but it's certainly trending towards Bryce getting the 5th-year option. But we have to wait and see how the next 2 weeks go. Because if he goes out and throws like 8 picks these next 2 games, knock on wood, not trying to jinx him, do you really want to invest in a quarterback who implodes when your season's on the line? Probably not. But with Rico Dowdle, we need to see more things play out and understand this. Chuba Hubbard, they had just paid him a new deal last year. They've drafted Jonathan Brooks, who they still want to see. Trevor Etienne, they have him on the roster. There are other running backs. They do not need to pay Rico Dowdle. Now, let's wait and see how the next 2 weeks play out. So maybe Rico will show that he needs to be back in Carolina next year. But there's a lot of people saying, oh, Rico's got to be the guy. You got to re-sign Rico. And you look at him now, seems to be just a guy. So we'll see. We'll talk more about that tomorrow on the Weekly Wednesday Mailbag. Number 2, win in the red zone. The Panthers enter the game 26th in a red zone touchdown percentage this season at 51.3. Well, Tampa, they rank 30th in red zone defense at 72.2% of the time. They're allowing a touchdown on their opponent's appearances to the red zone. The Panthers were 1 for 2 on Sunday. One of those was Bryce Young just running around and finding JT Sanders wide open. They should have been 2 for 2 on that opening drive. Rico Dowdle was about to run into the end zone and then just tripped on his own 2 feet. I guess the turf monster got him, but that was a touchdown. Ended up being a field goal. Did not love the toss play there on 3rd down to Chuba. That got immediately blown up, so they had to settle for a field goal. I think overall they won in the red zone. They got 10 points off of it. They should have had 14, but it was enough for them to get that win on Sunday. And then number 3 was to limit turnovers. Tampa only had 11 turnovers this season heading into Sunday. They now have 12 thanks to Baker Mayfield's interception that was made there by Lathan Ransom to seal the game. Tampa has now turned the ball over 7 times, or they've turned it over in 7 of their 8 losses. This season, the only one was against New England, taking out the fumble on the final play of the Panthers game against the Saints last week. They haven't turned the ball over in 4 out of their last 5 games. And what do you know? That's leading to them to have success and be sitting here atop the NFC South division standings heading into their Week 17 matchup at home against the Seattle Seahawks. A couple of things I want to point out here from just Dave Canales, injury-wise, from his Monday press conference. Robert Hunt is making progress, and it's a real possibility. Dave said that this week they'll open up his window to return to play. So that's 21 days that he would have to be elevated from the IR to the active roster. Now, I need to dig into this because I think it's different once you get to the playoffs. They do make the playoffs. I do think it's a little different as far as like who could be available. I don't know if you can still do the whole 21-day window. So I'm going to have to get some clarity on that over the next couple of days, next time I'm in the building, which should be on Tuesday as open locker room. And we'll talk to Dave again. So that's one thing I want to have to get some clarity on. But that's pretty remarkable that a guy who has a torn biceps is able to come back potentially for this final run for maybe the playoff opener or home game for Carolina if they end up winning the NFC South. Did not think that was going to happen. Because typically you see when a guy tears his biceps, he's done for the year. But here we are. Season's long enough to where Robert Hunt could be back. Now, Dave said he's not 100% sure, but there was a lot of just pep in his step and positivity, which, well, that is Dave Canales. But he seemed to really think that it was going to happen this week. We'll find out again on Tuesday, where if you look at this week, Monday, they're usually in for meetings, but because it's Christmas, they gave the players Monday off. Tuesday is usually their off day. So Monday this week is Tuesday for them, where Tuesday, tomorrow, or today, whenever you're listening and watching this is their Wednesday. Wednesday, Christmas Eve, will be their Thursday. They'll be off on Thursday. And then Friday will be the normal Friday that they have. So that's just how things are going to play out. So we'll get an injury report tomorrow. It will be later because they're playing a West Coast opponent, which is so lame that they do that. Ickey Ekwonu apparently was really close to playing on Sunday, but they were not fully confident in his leg holding up and being able to do the things that need him to do in his pass sets as a left tackle. but Dave did think that Josh Nijman went in there and played fairly well. So those are a couple injury updates for the Panthers offensive linemen. We'll get more on that on Tuesday again when the injury report comes out and when we first hear from Dave Canales, the Carolina Panthers head coach, in really preparation for this week, as today's press conference on Monday was just more about looking back at what happened on Sunday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As again, the Carolina Panthers, your Carolina Panthers, Charlotte's Carolina Panthers, against the Carolina Panthers, of course, are in first place in the NFC South with 2 games remaining here in 2025. That's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Hosted by yours, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe, follow the show free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and Blue Sky at Julian Council, where I'm back with y'all on Wednesday, answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. All you got to do is at me or DM me over on Twitter or Blue Sky at Julian Council, and I'll get those questions answered here on Wednesday's show. In the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding. And again, I'll talk to y'all on Wednesday as we'll answer your mailbag questions.